So you were actually telling me that one of the questions you get most often is actually, don't I need a large diameter parabolic in order to capture the human voice, which seems very contrary to what we've been discussing in all of these different interviews. Could you shed a little bit of light on that?
Well, like you said, it's a very common question, and it's honestly a misconception. Many people think that if the sound wave has too low of a frequency, the wavelength will be so large that the sound will just go around the collector dish. Oftentimes, these people are thinking of electromagnetic waves, which are transverse, but sound waves are longitudinal or compression waves, not transverse.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit further, or do you have any pictures or anything like that that you can share?
Okay, I do have a picture. Transverse waves, what I'm speaking of with transverse waves is the motion is perpendicular to the wave path, but with longitudinal waves, the motion is parallel to the wave path. These pictures should help explain a little bit. If you think of a spring or a slinky, and if you would move your hand up and down vertically, the spring would create a vertical motion. Um, and if in theory that motion became too large, then yes, it would not be fully captured by the parabolic microphone because the motion would be larger than the diameter of the dish. However, sound waves are longitudinal. So if you think of this in this picture, the hand moving left to right and the spring is compressed and then extended and then compressed and then extended, that wavelength, the distance from one compression to the next, is not really affected by the diameter of the dish. It doesn't care how far those molecules are apart because it's perpendicular to the face of the dish. Uh,
Mhm.
Hopefully that makes some sense, and we'll make those videos available that animate that motion in the description.
Okay. So how does this apply to parabolic microphones?
Well, again, the frequency and wavelength of a sound wave do not affect how the compressed air passes around the collector dish or the parabolic dish. However, higher frequencies do reflect off of a surface more completely or more efficiently than lower frequencies. So lower frequencies are more likely to be absorbed more completely than high frequencies. This is why you hear the bass notes of your neighbor's stereo system or the car passing down the street. You hear the bass notes, but not the high notes. Um, this is why all parabolic collectors, to a certain extent, have a higher amplification of high frequencies than low frequencies. However, this change in absorption is not affected by the size of the dish. It's just a characteristic of the dish itself.
So you've tested, multiple sizes of dishes and they all run at essentially the same amount of high frequency bias?
We've done quite a bit of testing, especially over the last year, and we had three different pairs of parabolic microphones, and each pair had the same exact design but were different only in their diameters. And in all three cases, the frequency response was very similar between the parabolic mics with the same design. The lower frequency response was not improved, whether the diameter was increased by 20, 50, or even 70% between the two sizes. And we can make these, insert these images so people can see them. But again, the low frequency response is very similar, even with dishes that are 50 or 70% larger.
Okay. So then why do people use large collector dishes?
Well, again, after all this testing, it's our contention that the frequency response is affected much more by the rigidity of the collector dish than by its diameter. So the design or the construction of the dish is much more of a factor than the diameter of the dish. However, the diameter does certainly affect the amplification. The larger the diameter, the more amplification. And as an extreme example of that, along the English Channel in the UK, they constructed these massive concrete parabolic collectors in the days before radar in order to listen for ships and airplanes approaching their country over the English Channel. And
Hmm.
again, with obviously with concrete to be very, very uh, the rigid, and again the larger uh, size would provide just tremendous amplification.